Okay, I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but I used to feel weirdly ashamed of my bookshelf. There's just so many books just half read. And then I fell into a cycle of picking one up, getting excited, and then hitting a brick wall. Obviously not a physical one, just a metaphorical one. I don't know why I had to explain that. And every time I started, my conscience would constantly remind me, you never finish what you start. And I thought, to be honest, I was lazy, undisciplined, and a part of that might be true, but I heard something from Naval Ravikant that completely changed the game for me. And again, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Again, metaphorically, not physically. So I asked myself, what if not finishing books wasn't failure? What if it was actually the key to become a better reader? When I first heard of this approach, I was so excited, but I was also confused on how the mindset came along. So where did the pressure of trying to finish books from start to finish even come from? Like, why do we feel morally obligated to finish books? So I did some research, and here's how it all began. So back in the day, like way back in the day, I'm talking like ancient scrolls and monks back in the day, around 2000 BC, books were extremely rare. So books didn't exist the way we see them today. You know, they used to use scrolls and they used to read them one part of a time. Now remember, they wouldn't have had any bookmarks, page numbers, or even book covers. So scrolls were extremely rare and they were literally like sacred objects. So if you owned one, you're fucking reading that word for word. So Egyptians used them to write religious texts, legal documents, and literature. So if you fast forward to the 1st century during the Roman Empire, the Codex was born. So this was a revolutionary move at the time. You know, this is the first time that pages bound together, creating the modern book that we all know today. So this small change made linear reading, you know, that start to finish approach that we know today, possible, but it wasn't yet expected. So let's go one further and fast forward to the 1940s. So a man called Johannes Gutenberg, who was a German inventor, printer, goldsmith, he did everything, literally, he changed the world forever without ever writing a book himself. And I think he probably had the most German name you could ever think of. So before Gutenberg, books were copied by hand. You know, a single Bible would take months, even years to finish. But in the 1440s, Gutenberg invented a printing press with individual letters that could be rearranged and reused. This let printers mass produce books quickly and accurately for the first time in Europe. For the first time in history, books were everywhere. They were cheaper, faster to produce, and easier to own. Printers started adding page numbers, chapters, and titles. This made it easier and more natural for people to read from beginning to end. So thanks to Gutenberg, books were cheaper, literacy skyrocketed, knowledge spread like wildfire, you know, fueling things like the Renaissance and the modern science. So it's safe to say Gutenberg was a certified bad man. Then came the novels in the 1700s and the 1800s. You know, stories became more immersive. People were hooked from one page to the final chapter. You know, reading became entertainment and reading a book all the way through became the norm. So if you didn't finish the book, it felt like you missed out on the entire story. And then of course, school. Jesus Christ, depressing. So in the 1800s, mass education became a thing. Government started teaching everyone to read, and they did that through textbooks. The most advanced fucking technology ever. Fucking so boring. Which is obviously designed to, you know, be read start to finish. One chapter at a time, one book at a time. You know, you were taught that being a good reader meant finishing the book. You know, this is also where books changed. So they weren't just collections or facts or religious texts anymore. They became, you know, unified experiences, stories, arguments, lessons. Meant, you know, following it from A to Z became more of the mainstream thing to do. So over time, society started to believe in, if you're going to read a book, you should finish it. And that became the cultural standard. So if you've ever felt bad putting down a book halfway, just remember, so that feeling isn't about the book. It's about, you know, centuries of storytelling trends and school systems programming us to think that we need to finish what we read. I think for us, that condition did something really subtle but dangerous for us. I think it disconnected us from our instincts, from our natural curiosity. You know, we learned that reading had to be slow, painful, and structured. And eventually, you know, a lot of us just stopped altogether. Not because we didn't like reading, but it's because we didn't like feeling forced to. And this is where Naval comes in.
And the reality is, I would rather read the best 100 books over and over again until I absorb them, rather than read all the books.
Right.
Yeah, because your brain has finite information, in finite space. You get enough advice, it all cancels to zero. There's a lot of nonsense in books out there too. So I don't read anymore to complete books. I read to satisfy my genuine intellectual curiosity.
So Naval's philosophy completely flipped the script for me, you know. Read what you love until you love what to read, instead of grinding your way through a book. So look at books and figure out why you are particularly interested in these certain things. Is it a natural interest? Are you going for a certain thing and this book will help you? Like, naturally follow your curiosities and just experiment with loads of different types of books. And when you find a book, just read 10 pages of it, skim through a couple of chapters and ask yourself, is this what I need right now? And if it's not, cross it off and move on, because you don't owe the book anything. At the end of the day, you know, it's there to serve you and not the other way around. And let's be real, man, like our brains are wired for curiosity, not obligation. You know, when you feel that sense of boredom or friction when it comes to reading a book, it's your brain saying, fuck it, abort. Like, this is not right now, like abort mission. And you're allowed to listen to this because, you know, reading needs to stay exciting. When it feels like play, you naturally come back to it again and again. And that's what in turn builds consistency, you know, not discipline, not guilt, but genuine interest. So if you're tired of feeling guilty about your reading habits, you know, this is my permission for you to just do it your way. Do what you need to do, you know, quit the books that don't click. You know, chase the ideas that light you up. Read to explore, not to prove something. And if you want to take this even further and you want to expose yourself to more ideas consistently, then watch this video here where I show you how to read books 3 times faster. I'll see you in there. Peace.